Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Rob McDougall. Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm great, Vant. How about yourself?
I am well. It's great to speak with you. Rob is the president and CEO of Upstream Works Software. Upstream Works Software is doing some great stuff in terms of the omnichannel contact center software space. They're aiming to build and roll out software to increase customer engagement and in agent success. Their agent-first approach to the contact center has helped bring the customer journey together across all digital channels, applications, and platforms with desktop elegance. And so, Rob, we'll talk more about that in a second. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about you and your background.
I'm running a company, but I'm an electrical engineer, so I didn't come out of sales or accounting or anything. I took a job in 1996 that was with a computer telephony integration company. We started doing inbound screen pops and things for Bell Canada and became the backbone of the Bell Canada network. That company went through a bunch of acquisitions. In 2000, my lead architect and myself took that original company and did a management buyout and formed Upstream Works.
Oh, great.
We sort of were, I guess, non-risk entrepreneurs. We took something, that was a functional going concern to make Upstream, focused on sort of boutique contact center applications. In 2007, we released our first omnichannel product called Upstart. About 5 or 6 years later, the industry came out with this new term, omnichannel. We didn't know it was omnichannel then. And today, the things that we're doing are largely what we were doing back in 2007. 2007, we kind of had what I call our pound the fist on the table moment going, there's got to be a better way for agents to work with interactions in a contact center because it's so complicated and it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Focus from day one has been simplifying what they have to do.
That's great. I mean, as someone who actually used to be a CEO of a company that had many contact centers, it is a grueling job, and anything that can make it more simple and make it possible for folks to track how things are being processed through the system is really, really helpful. So tell me a little bit more about Upstream Works today, and what are you guys focused on?
We're still very, very focused on an agent-first approach to things. I'm kind of on a kick right now because everybody who puts in contact center technology starts looking at the channels and the platforms, and they miss that last mile, like the human machine interface, which is the agent, right? The agent is, there's 2,000 of them in your contact center using an application every day, and you need to have more focus on how that works to them. More recently, we've started to realize where, AI is important in contact centers, because it absolutely is.
Yeah.
We're unfortunately not an AI company, but what we're really good at is integrating things into a contact center so that agents can use it. So we're really focused on the omnichannel still, but really operationalizing AI in a contact center and helping companies take their AI application of choice and use it to achieve some real business results without messing up that agent experience, because they're doing the same thing 80 times a day.
Yeah, no, I think that's really key. I mean, certainly there are a lot of new applications that are using machine learning. And in fact, it was quite interesting. I did a ton of research in the machine learning space several years ago now. And at the time, really the most interesting work was being done in call centers, in contact centers, to actually help folks process that information, understand the nature of the customer, the mood of the customer sometimes even. Tell me some of the stuff that you're seeing and how that integration process is working.
AI is very fragile in that it's really complex information processing.
Yeah.
So it's very focused on something. So something that, if you have a artificial intelligence application, the sentiment, that's not going to be your conversational AI on your website.
Right.
Nor is it going to be your agent assist AI, because they're all kind of doing different things.
Yeah.
So in a contact center, you may well end up with multiple AI platforms. And so what we're focusing on is providing a vehicle where, as an organization, you can choose a conversational AI application, and it will come into an agent interface and work one way. And if you have multiple conversational AI applications, they all look the same to the agent, right? If you're doing agent assist, you may have different things you're looking up, different databases you're getting into, different AIs you might be working with. Our goal is to make sure that all of those back-end AIs are relevant to the agent. They just see a workspace that behaves the same way.
Are we at that moment, Rob, where you're finding your customers are really embracing this idea of how do we action this? How do we integrate this? And essentially, how do we scale all of these elements together?
It's still early days for
Yeah,
most.
that's what I was trying to get a sense of. Yeah.
The issue with omnichannel is that when you want to dip your toe in the water, it's easy to put something in that is, I'll call it cheap and cheerful and a silo. And a lot of people are doing that with AI these days. And unfortunately, what that means is that the customer who that's interacting with, in many cases, is getting a bad customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
They deal with an AI, it may or may not work properly, but when they end up having to go to an agent, the agent doesn't know anything about the AI. They don't have that information, or if it does, it comes up in some other application. So their life gets complicated. So again, it's that last mile that people need to focus on.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's cheaper to not worry about that.
Yeah.
Dollar outlay.
I was curious, certainly machine learning will be something that I'd say maybe the innovators are pushing and probably beginning to think about how they could scale it at some point. But what are the big topics on the minds of your customers these days? Are they having talent issues? I'm just curious.
I think the big thing in contact centers, and this was really, contact centers have always had retention problems with staff. They've had high turnover. That skyrocketed after COVID. So even today, contact centers are having a super hard time getting and retaining staff. And this is not just in North America. We've seen this like worldwide. It's happening everywhere. So keeping agents happy and increasing time to competency is very, very important for these organizations, because staff is the biggest thing they've got. It's 70% of their spend. And that's why suddenly when you call an airline, your wait time is 3.5, 4 hours at times, because they just don't have the staff to be able to deal with the interactions.
I was going to ask you that during COVID, it would have been interesting to understand what happened with contact centers, because on the one hand, we had this explosion of digital work and digital consumption, which would have required heavy contact center usage, I imagine. But on the other hand, people don't want to go into a contact center, right? So were you finding that companies were shifting to like distributed at home networks, or how was it going?
Yeah, there was a massive explosion of diaspora away from the centralized contact center through COVID. A lot of them they're bringing more people back into the office.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with the contact center is, if you've got the right tools, it's pretty easy to manage someone who's remote. You don't really have as much of a team environment, because someone's supposed to be really focusing on that interaction that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I think COVID did lead to a good solid uptick of cloud technologies, right? Because it was hard to extend the brick and mortar to people's homes, but it was much easier to extend a cloud infrastructure into people's homes. So yeah, there was a huge diaspora around that. And again, you have this, I'm now at home, I'm less connected with the company. You've got the whole, the great resignation going on. You've got the fact that contact centers had a staffing level of X, and guess what happened when no one could go to a brick and mortar? The contacts went way up. So the stress in the job went up, it got more difficult, and people started quitting, and it started steamrolling. from there.
I mean, what was the scale of volume increase? I just assume it must have been immense based on even just my personal experience.
Yeah, I don't have the details
Yeah.
of the specific volume increases
Yeah.
that people would have had. But again, just speaking personally, the great thing about working in the contact center industry is you can be a practitioner, but you're always a customer.
Right.
Just empathize with that customer experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rob, I mean, when you look forward here in 2023, here we are at the beginning of a new year, and we've escaped out of the, I guess, the end of COVID, but now we find ourselves in an interesting economic cycle. What's on the horizon? What are you seeing in the near future?
Well, I'm actually seeing rumblings around people thinking that an agent first direction is a solid direction for the company, which is really gratifying to see.
Yeah.
I think what's going to dominate contact centers over the next 12 months, honestly, is this little thing called Chat GPT. I don't know if you've heard of that. I mean, I know you
Yeah.
have. That's going to be what everyone's talking about and what everyone's thinking. I can just plug Chat GPT into my contact center and it will automatically know my business and be able to get things done with my backend systems. And so I think there's going to be a lot of talk and a lot of playing and probably a lot of disappointment at the end of the day. But it will also somewhat spur the increase of actual production AI in contact centers to, help agents do their job better.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We're playing with Chat GPT over the weekend, and we were actually doing sequences, so kind of scripting, and it was quite interesting. When it got it right, it got it really right, and when it got it wrong, it was wildly wrong. So it was one of those ones where maybe having a couple kind of human eyes that would review all of this stuff was still pretty critical.
Yeah, the generative algorithms that they use. The issue with the business is when someone asks a question to you about insurance, the Chat GPT, as it's trained, doesn't know to say, unless it hits a hard wall, it doesn't know to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it makes up an answer, which is really bad if you're asking about if your credit card covers your travel insurance for a flight you're trying to book.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, it sounds like you had the right vision a decade ago, and now people are embracing it and scaling it. Rob, if someone wanted to learn more about what you and the Upstream Works team are doing, where's the best place to reach you?
I'm on Twitter at McDougall Rob. Our website, www.upstreamworks.com. I'm also fairly active on LinkedIn. So if you wanted to follow me on LinkedIn, I follow a lot of AI topics and agent desktop type topics there on contact centers.
Excellent. Well, I can only see the business that you're in being something that is becoming more and more critical, especially as we have a much more digital as well as diffuse workforce and home life and entertainment life. Rob, it's great to have you on Uncaged. We've been speaking with Rob McDougall. He's the president and CEO of Upstream Works Software. They provide the best-in-class omnichannel contact center software to increase customer engagement and agent success. They have an agent-first approach to the contact center, and that helps bring the customer journey together across all digital channels, applications, and platforms with desktop elegance, and now integration with AI. So, Rob, thank you so much for being on the program. We look forward to having you back.
It's been a pleasure, Ben. Thanks.
Cheers.